and utility and deployment. I think they are due a recruitment campaign, or they're in the process of one, and there has been an issue of natural wastage of retirements. But I don't think it's purely about just, no more than in the Defence Forces, neither problem will be solved by just recruiting en masse.
The situation for renters has been described as grim by the author of the latest Daft.ie report. Rent has risen by nearly 14% year on year, with people paying around €1,800 per month. In Waterford, Galway and Limerick, the cost of renting has increased by between 18 and 20% year on year. These people in Limerick say the sky-high rents and soaring grocery bills are difficult to deal with.
The cost for a family is quite high. Electricity, gas, I think there's a lot of things government can help. It's not only for renting. For me, renting is a big part of our expenditure.
I've looked at rent and it's like, no, I'd rather not stay in Ireland because of it, because it's too dear.
US officials say they're still trying to understand why foreign objects have been spotted over their airspace. 3 structures were shot down over North America at the weekend, and earlier this month a suspected Chinese spy balloon was downed off the coast of South Carolina after hovering in the sky for several days. John Kirby is from the US National Security Council.
We do not assess that these most recent objects posed any direct threat to people on the ground, and we are laser focused on confirming their nature and purpose, including through intensive efforts to collect debris in the remote locations where they have fallen.
And that's your news update at 7:02.
News Talk weather.
Thanks to Ryanair. Cheer on the boys in green with Ryanair's low fares to Edinburgh.
It'll become cloudy tonight with outbreaks of rain, lows of 4 to 8 degrees Celsius. Now you're up to date on News Talk.
The Newsround on Off the Ball.
With Gillette. Start your day in flow with the new Gillette Labs razor with exfoliating bar.
This is News Talk.
Folks, welcome. Great to have you with us. Liam Tolan, Rory O'Connor coming your way. Monday Night Rugby as Irish rugby hits dizzying heights. Meanwhile, Kansas City and Patrick Mahomes win Super Bowl number 2 in 3 years. We have Philippe Auclair on the football show. Merseyside derby this evening. VAR shambles over the weekend. Pep and City come out fighting. They boo the Champions League anthem. Turns out they now boo the Premier League tune as well. As Pep said himself Friday, it's not our fault Stephen Gerrard slipped. 53106 is the text number. We're at Off the Ball on Twitter. Michael McCarthy, hello to you.
Hi Joe, how are you?
Very well. Will Man City fans boo the FA Cup music as well? Is there FA Cup music? I don't even know.
I don't know. Is it true? Abide by Me in the final? I don't know. They boo Abide by Me? I don't think so. I think it's specifically a Premier League issue that they have at the moment. Yes, I didn't know there was a Premier League anthem. I'm sure I've heard it 1,000 times, but I had no idea there was a Premier League anthem.
Yes, there is, and they boo it. They only stopped booing it when Pep, their main protagonist now, their chief defendant,
came out to the boos.
Yes, and then they cheered.
Yeah,
all hail.
And also put up a massive banner to celebrate a lawyer / solicitor on the streets of London.
Lord Panic.
Yes, exactly, a panic on the streets of London, which was, in fairness, not a bad pun, but. Or pun the right word? Maybe not. Not a bad banner, but weird to be celebrating a extremely expensive lawyer as part of supporting a football club. But that's what we do these days.
Should we crowdfund the 80k for a day of Lord Panic's time to get him on the show?
And yeah, so Off the Ball listeners, GoFundMe for 80 grand for Lord Panic so we can do an interview with him. And ask him what exactly? I'm not sure, but
just take us behind the scenes. What's going on?
Still cheaper than your man Gary Kasparov.
Yeah. Will Lord Panic want the comfortable chair? Remains to be seen. By the way, Jane Law figures were very good last week, so many thank you to all the listeners with us. Some call it the slight tangent bounce. Obviously, we can't say that definitively.
I've been digging into the numbers, and
explodes every couple of Tuesdays, is it?
Oh, it's unbelievable. Yeah. That Tuesday 8:00, which there hasn't been a slight tangent in a while, so fears abound for the next Channel Lore book.
Well, there are rumours tomorrow. It could happen. Richie McCormack with us as well. Good evening. They also got out the Richie McCormack bounce.
7.5, 7. Strong, very strong.
Yes.
And it's all, literally all because of me. I'm not even going to have you two try and weasel in on the credit for this. This is all me, and I will take the credit in the form of, I don't know, it's usually donuts, isn't it?
Well,
I'll take some donuts.
Advertisers have talked to us about the 7:30 Richie McCormack cliff edge, and they want answers. What I mean? And we have none. Hey,
this is the world we live in.
Irish rugby.
I was going to say a few sporting things happened this weekend on the pitch as well.
Turns out they are genuinely, and we can say this soberly, this is not just hype, they are genuinely awesome. It's awesome. They're so good. They are so good.
But do you not still have this thing where you feel dirty or like somehow wrong in sort of admitting the evidence of your eyes?
No, I don't, because it's just so obvious.
I'm just getting to that point as well.
They're just so good.
I'll tell you what I was getting to that point is, when France came back, and we're like, France weren't bad, and that's what the reason it was a classic game was because how good France were. Now
they ran the ball too much and played into Ireland's hands. They turned
all
from
their tactics
kicking team into a running team, and Ireland said, well,
which made for great watching as well, I suppose. But when France were coming back into it and they had all the momentum at the start of the second half, and Ireland were making mistakes for the only time in the game, and then Ireland calmed it down. We can go into loads of different positives as to why, and Doris taking the game and the bench, all the inexperienced lads at the bench playing well, but more of the fact that was Ireland just showed this nous, and I was watching this thinking to myself, they're going to win this game, and they're actually and it's going to be comfortable. I actually, before Ringrose try anything like that, I just had this feeling that Ireland had settled here and it was going to be enough. And it's really hard to comprehend being an Irish sports fan all your life, and I don't think in any sport having ever supported a dominant team, maybe the Patriots or something, but in any of the main sports never supporting a dominant team, to sort of get your head around the fact that they're the team that I've watched do to my teams for my entire life. That's the Manchester United, or that's the New Zealand or whatever, and that's what Ireland are doing at the moment. And it takes a while for your brain to trigger, but once it does, you're like, God, we are comfortable here. We're
triggered.
Much a superior
this
team.
This is now Irish boxing. This is just routine excellence, regular talent coming through, brilliant coaching, and that will only be passed on to the next generation. So Paul O'Connell begets whoever goes into coaching next. It's just unbelievably impressive, and to be beating France, England in the international sphere just by dint of population, it's not something we're going to do in a whole host of sports.
And also an exceptional French team. Their 15 wins in a row isn't something you give up easy. This is the biggest match of their Six Nations by far. This is the game they've been targeting, and it's not like sometimes in the past with great Irish wins you're like, we caught someone on the hop. That doesn't happen anymore either. I was thinking specifically how good Tom O'Toole was when he came on. And, it's not a million years ago that Ireland, who were having good performances at the time and winning championships and Triple Crowns, even a Grand Slam, didn't have one tight head prop after John Hayes. And there was no solution if we lost John Hayes. There was, the World Cup in 2007 where we didn't have a backup out half. And you see how good Ross Byrne was, who wasn't even in the picture, 6 months ago. He was probably, fifth choice, realistically? And then he comes on and absolutely settles the game and has a brilliant game. It's unreal that we have the depth that we have at the moment. In such a short time, really. If you think about it realistically, since, say, 2009, say that Grand Slam in 2009, it's not that long ago, in terms of the amount of players that have come through.
No, it really is quite something. They just look, like you would say again, very soberly, more likely than not to win a Grand Slam. And who knows what happens at the World Cup, but they'll give it a bloody good rattle. And that's they might come out the wrong side of a titanic match against the French on French soil, but that doesn't mean that all of what we're watching now dissipates into hype. It's real.
No, we just it's a pity that there is this thing hanging over it, because otherwise we would just having a more realistic conversation about what's happening. But ultimately, if they go and lose a classic to France 35-34 in the World Cup quarter-final, is that anything to do with all the other World Cup quarter-finals? No, and then that team goes on and wins the tournament.
It's very different to previous World Cups, absolutely. The most worrying story I saw, Richie, page 7 of the Sunday Times yesterday, Ireland struggling to get a hotel accommodation for the World Cup in France for their Paris games, which they're happy with. Now, why can't we get hotels for World Cups in this country? What is the issue there?
I don't know. Surely most of Dublin is a hotel at this stage. That's kind of what's been going on the past while. Yeah, it's odd, but it's a nice problem to have, because clearly the appetite to go and see Ireland at a Rugby World Cup is huge.
The team can't get a hotel. It's like 07. They can't get a hotel with a gym.
Stop.
Oh yeah.
They have to. This is the kind of thing that should have been sorted a long time ago, like 3-4 years ago when the draw was made. Because it's not as if they're shy about making Rugby World Cup draws. We knew where we were going. We knew, more often than not, who we were playing. So,
well, I said it to Alan Quinlan yesterday. We were in the highlight show on Virgin. He, one of those who braved the industrial park of 07. And I saw the man shudder when I said it to him. Got flashbacks. Oh, not again.
Don't talk to any of those lads about 2007. It's actually not fair at this stage. It's just cruelty.
It's true. I presume Richie, like all of us, as Hugo Keenan burst through that glorious try and the Ringrose try and the pass from Doris extraordinary, Sexton galloping down the touchline. I presume, like all of us, you did look on and think, bloody hell, this is super.
Yeah, it's a really weird thing to be in, because you do still temper it and you do still go, well, like, is France's hunger the same as what it was last year? I think from a French perspective, that certainly is an issue, but Ireland still went and scored 4 tries against what is an exceptional France side, one of the best of my lifetime, certainly. What was remarkable was, for all the concerns that may have been there about Irish depth and about the bench, like Mick mentioned Tom O'Toole there, like Renan Kelleher played the majority of that match, and I don't think it was an issue. I think players coming off the bench, so when the likes of Jack Conan came on and the likes of Ross Byrne came on, it almost seemed like we got better towards the end of that game. I know the majority of the tries were scored in the first half, but there wasn't a sense where these guys are going to come on and we're going to have a wobble. We seemed to galvanise with the introduction of the replacements in the second half. And I thought Craig Casey was fantastic as well, real live wire as a replacement scrum half. There was no concerns when we talked about, Tadgh Furlong being one of those players where if he misses out, then Ireland are going to be down 10% or more. There's none of that. And it's not a matter of hubris, and it's not a matter of patting ourselves in the back. But I think we just have to take time and a few moments to appreciate how good this team is at the moment. And if they do fail to win a World Cup, or not win a World Cup, fail is probably the wrong word, then they will have done it from the position of being the best team in the world. And that's not nothing. Yeah.
Joan in Ennis picks me up. This is Irish boxing. Maybe they'd want to actually be world champions first. Fair point if you're going to go that literally, Joan. I accept that. I suppose, there's sustained excellence here. It's not just a flash in the pan and we're all losing the run of ourselves is my meaning.
Well, they're Irish boxing world champions. There is only one world championship in the entire sport of rugby.
True.
I would say Ireland are among the best boxing nations.
Yeah.
In much way that we are in rugby. I think that's your point.
Fran, you absolutely asks, of Limerick, would people be celebrating the game for all its brilliance if Ireland had lost? I doubt it, he says. I think even in the French media, they're talking about this as an extraordinary game. So
yeah,
we mightn't be celebrating it. We would be recognising it as an extraordinary
Exactly, yeah. I think we'd be kicking ourselves because we know that Ireland were probably the better team. So it's a different story, but it doesn't mean you wouldn't accept a game for as good as it was. Like at half time, I got a couple of messages of people who are generally on the negative side, let's say, of looking at history or looking at the names will be irrelevant.
Looking at history,
it's still only a friendly.
Looking at life.
Not looking at history is the wrong word, but looking at kind of like aren't Ireland brilliant? France aren't up to much. That'd be the usual conversations.
Okay.
And I got a text at half time from one of those people saying best test match I've ever seen. So it was only half time at that stage, but I think that's the feeling. Like I don't know about you lads, but I was exhausted watching that match.
And it seems Wayne Barnes also recognised it was an extraordinary game and decided we got to keep the show on the road here. Yellow it is.
Oh, well, we mentioned Barnesy.
Yeah.
Straight away. My first thought was he called that as being fine in live play, right? That's fine. That can happen, but
I thought it was fine in live play too.
Again, I don't think there's a problem with that. I just hope that didn't influence. I felt, and I don't know about yous, but from everything we heard on ref Mike, I felt he was working for that not to be a red card from the start. So he was upping the level of what had happened each time he spoke, obviously. But it started from a very low point. You know, it started from looking for angles that he didn't need and, you know, looking for a reason for me for it not to be a red card. And then, but even then, I felt he hadn't found one. And I couldn't believe it. Like, I have to say, you know, there's no point in being angry about these things, but it's more important than Ireland versus France in the Six Nations that a referee of his standing and experience still is making these decisions, because ruin a test match or not. Yeah. You know, Rob Herring, by the way, went into the scrum. He was eventually taken out before it actually happened, but it was like he played on, touched the ball in open play when he clearly didn't know where he was. And we got to the point where the yellow card was dealt with and we were going into a scrum with Rob Herring still there. Low degree of danger. The guy was looking, was walking backwards on the pitch.
Well, there is...
Quinny made the point about that, but sorry, Joe, for jumping in. Alan Quinlan made the point about that on AM, where in reviewing the yellow card, the match doctors also have to review the footage that's available to them, and it's not a case of hooking the player immediately, because they can't in every instance just hook the player immediately. They have to actually review what's happened. I'm not defending it. I don't think it's ideal either. But
he dealt with this in the summer, though. You can. He showed all the signs immediately there. You don't need to see the details of how he was hit to see the signs of concussion that he had. From a procedural standpoint, I believe it's a case that they do actually need to go through all of that before they can make a judgment on the player.
It happened at Murrayfield as well, where George North, and it wasn't as bad a hit, but took a ding to the head and seemed to kind of collapse on himself and then sat up. You certainly couldn't say it was criteria 1 where he definitely is just off no HIA, but there were like several phases of play which he was involved in until the call came to go off for HIA. And I don't know why that lag is there from contact to getting the call for HIA.
But I would say from what I saw from Herring when that ball came to him at the back of the ruck, that looked category 1 to me.
Do you know, now that you say it, you're right. You're the only person I've heard say that, but yeah, his efforts to pick up the ball when it came to him.
He was facing the wrong way. He turned around, picked up the ball and just sort of launched it into the air and fell back. Yeah. It's, you know, it was disturbing to see, actually.
Yeah, I think it's a fair point. I haven't heard enough people make that point.
And Sexton made that run because France recognised what had happened as well. Now, like, I'm not saying Sexton took advantage of the situation or anything, but France didn't want to go near him because he was out of it. So they kind of stepped back and didn't know what to do. It was only a split second all of this happens, but...
Yeah. We'll push on. Lots of texts coming in. I will get to them in due course. 53106 if you want to get us. Liam Toland, Rory O'Connor on the way after 8 o'clock. Evening, lads. I missed the Super Bowl. Is it worth a download? Wonders Frank. Well, I think it is. It was a classic. We'll touch on that in just a moment. Richie, let's start the news round. It is, as ever, with thanks to Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. The news on Tadgh Beirne. I mean, he left in some distress.
Yeah, he did. He had a boot on by the end of the game, and the Ireland lock is a doubt for the remainder of the Six Nations. He was to see a specialist today to ascertain his treatment, having come off with a leg injury during Saturday's win over France. Jonathan Sexton is to have a groin issue managed by the Ireland medical staff this week. Rob Herring, after that tackle, is observing the return to play protocols, while Dan Sheehan is having his hamstring injury supervised. A 25-man squad has been retained to train with the Ireland under-20s this week, but the likes of Keith Earls, Jordan Larmour, Cian Prendergast, Jacob Stockdale and Gavin Coombs have all been released to their provinces for URC action. On this morning's OTB AM, Alan Quinlan was full of praise for Ross Byrne's second half display against France.
And I think the biggest plus for Ireland on Saturday was Ross Byrne's performances when Johnny Sexton went off. He went off early in that second half.
Yeah.
And there was no kind of hairy...
49 minutes gone, I think.
There was no kind of situation where we went, oh God, wish Sexton was on. Sexton is at a different level, but I just think Ross Byrne has...
Our attacking play didn't
He's now got an
disappear.
incredible surge of confidence, and he feels, you know, this is my chance and this is my moment in time, which is really good.
Yeah, big afternoon for Byrne, because obviously November was good in that he made the kick, but that wasn't a performance as such, and Wales were beaten, and when he came on last week, and he didn't get many minutes. So in some respects, this was the first time he was tested properly, because you could argue his previous efforts when he was thrown to the lines a touch behind a failing scrum at Twickenham all those years ago, that's all an irrelevance as well in terms of trying to judge an out half. So this almost was his first proper chance, and he came through very nicely, very pumped up
That's what I was going to say.
Like he wasn't just like a rabbit in the headlights. I'm a young lad here. He was.
He's not a young lad.
No, well, that's the point. Like he had a lot of big game experience, and he was very invested in the outcome of the game. He wasn't just somebody thinking about his own performance, which is often the way when you're a newbie on the scene, and you're I'm sure many a debutant has walked off if they've played well and Ireland might have lost, thinking, well, I'm secretly pretty happy because it went well. He wasn't in that space at all.
But it's what Ireland need from an out half.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's what we're Johnny Sexton's team. So everyone who fills those boots has to play like Johnny Sexton, and that is basically to be a leader on the pitch. And that, look, he had some good moments. It was one really, really good crossfield kick, and he played well.
Yeah.
But I think that's the biggest thing to take out of it, was that Ross Byrne is the guy who's coming in here as like, probably sees himself. Johnny Sexton's almost so exalted and above it that he almost sees himself as Leinster's out half. Because he plays most of the games. He's best team in Europe probably, and he's coming in playing with all these guys all the time. Why would he be any different in a green shirt? And I think that's what Andy Farrell's going to take from that performance, was this guy was out here screaming and shouting and pointing and leading the back line, which is nearly the most important thing, because we know he has the talent to do all the other stuff.
Yeah, like Sexton is still above everyone, and
you
need him to play as many minutes as possible. Wasn't it quite something when he sprinted down the line though? Just laughing.
And it was the second break, as I mentioned. The other one was after the thing. But I love the afterburners. I love that, like, he's off here and it's like, right, I'm 38 years old, I'm just going to put the head down and lift the knees, and then off he went. But then a brilliant pass. That's the most important part. He didn't just like make as many yards as he could and then hope that we got some quick ball. It was a brilliant pass
into space. Doris hit it, and Doris had his hand out looking for it 10 metres behind Sexton.
Yeah.
And so Sexton floats it, not too much pace in it, lets Doris hit it, and then obviously gets smashed for his troubles, as is Johnny Sexton's way. I was thinking 4 years ago, if we're at the end of this World Cup cycle now, when Sexton came out after the last World Cup and said, no, I'm going to play the next World Cup hopefully, and we all laughed. If we had been shown that image then of what we're seeing now, we kind of wonder what the hell had happened. Richie, nobody will be shocked. We're touching on the decision to yellow card Antonio. So he has been cited.
Yeah, Uini Antonio cited for that challenge on Rob Herring during Saturday's win for Ireland. The tight head only received a yellow card from referee Wayne Barnes following consultation with the TMO, and Antonio will appear before a disciplinary panel via video link on Wednesday.
Merseyside derby.
Yeah, small matter thereof. Tonight, Seamus Coleman has been given his 400th appearance for Everton in tonight's Merseyside derby at Anfield. The Republic of Ireland captain is just the 19th player in the Toffees' history to reach that landmark. Teams are in for this one. For Liverpool, Alisson is in goal. A back four of Trent Alexander-Arnold, Joel Matip and Joe Gomez. Andy Robertson's at left back. Stefan Bajcetic, Fabinho and Jordan Henderson are their midfield, and it's a front three of Mo Salah, Cody Gakpo and Darwin Núñez. For Everton, largely unchanged from last week's win. There is one switch up front. Jordan Pickford's in goal for them. It's a back four of Coleman, James Tarkowski, Connor Cody and Vitaly Mikalenko. In midfield, it's Idrissa Gueye, Abdoulaye Doucouré and Amadou Onana. Alex Iwobi and Dwight McNeil are either side of Ellis Sims, who starts up front in place of the absent Dominic Calvert-Lewin. Kickoff at Anfield is at 8 o'clock.
Sean Dyche licking his lips.
Oh yeah.
Circling with intent.
He's talking about having empathy for Jurgen Klopp the other day, and as well, he was asked, did he have sympathy? He goes, we don't have sympathy, we have empathy. I understand what he's going through. We've all been there, but this is like poor Jurgen Klopp. It's one win, Sean, but at the same time, by the way, the 400 appearances for Seamus Coleman I think is worth remarking on. He was brilliant last weekend against Arsenal, and the amount of times that he's been written off by Everton or by us watching Everton and or commentators, and it's like, oh, Coleman is he's looking his age now, he's and he'd have a bad game, whatever. He comes back from it every time.
Yeah, Jamie Carragher properly wrote him off last season.
Yeah, he was brilliant. He marked Martinelli out of the game last week.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Richie, Superbowl, we're going to be talking about this in a bit more detail after the Richie McCormack Cliff Edge at 7:30.
I know, yeah. We should mention as well the important news surrounding Liverpool tonight too is that a UEFA commissioned review into the chaotic scenes at last year's Champions League final says the treatment of Liverpool fans in Paris almost led to a disaster. The match against Real Madrid was delayed for 37 minutes due to operational issues at the stadium. French police facing criticism from that report for firing tear gas at supporters, leading to crushing around security bars barriers at the Stade de France, while the independent report also says the French football authorities need to bear responsibility for their role in failing to ensure public safety. Neither the UEFA or the French ministry have yet commented on that. In fact, UEFA have indeed backed up that report, which has just been released in the last half hour. But as you mentioned there, the Kansas City Chiefs, Super Bowl champions for the second time in 4 years, 6 points down heading into the final quarter. They beat the Philadelphia Eagles 38 points to 35 in Phoenix overnight. A converted field goal from Harrison Butker with seconds left on the clock was the difference between the sides. Quarterback Patrick Mahomes also played a pivotal role in the Chiefs' success, while injured as well for the most part.
Somebody asked, was it worth watching the game back? I think it was an amazing game. I mean, there's a 20-minute highlights package which basically has every play, so I'd probably watch that as opposed to the 3-4 hour job. But 35 points apiece with a couple of moments to go, and then there was the soft-ish penalty. James Bradbury, to his credit, who was holding the shirt of Smith Schuster, came out and said it was a holding. I tugged his jersey. I was hoping they would let it slide. So very, very honest. It's the kind of thing that's often let slide.
It's usually let slide in a game like this at this stage. Like, it was a hold, it wasn't pass interference, I suppose, which is kind of like later on as the ball is in the air and it takes the guy out of the ability to catch it. It's a 5-yard penalty if you want, as opposed to from where the ball lands almost. It's just one of those that in a game like this you'll see 10 of them and maybe 2 of them will be called, is probably the way I would call it. Now, again, is it technically right? Yes. Did it ruin the game? Now, what would have happened there, just for people who think this has decided the game or this won it for the Chiefs, the Chiefs would have still kicked their field goal, but instead they got a first down and were able to run the clock down to kick their field goal with no time left, basically. So the Eagles would have got the ball back with about, I think, a minute and a half or so to go. Plenty of time to maybe go and get a field goal and bring it to overtime, or even go and score, or not, or the Chiefs to get a stop. It would have made for a much more dramatic ending. And as you say, one of the best Super Bowls of all time, really. It was just unbelievable. There wasn't too much defence, but 38-35 is a huge score, but it was dramatic all the way. The Eagles were winning by 10 points at half time, so it was a real defining moment for Mahomes and his career. But yeah, it's almost just a pity that we didn't get one more kind of exciting drive just to kind of put the gloss on it.
Brian Scary's Man City made a show of themselves at the weekend. I'd love to see them punished. Peter, lads, France scored only 1 try. Think about that. To me, that's a measure of how good Ireland were. And they felt more threatening than 1 try, France. Like, whenever they ran the ball, even if it may have been the wrong tactic, they did look a touch scary.
Did they ever look like scoring, though? Maybe once or twice, but
they beat a lot of defenders, is maybe the point. They beat 38 defenders.
Yeah.
So they were often
the way they play as well, isn't it? Yeah. But Ireland always recovered from it. Donald Lenihan was obsessed with this stat on commentary that Ireland averaged 4 tries and average conceding 1, and it's exactly what they did here in this game. And I thought it's a good point. Like, averaging it's good. Like, and Wales had more, I think, like outright chances to score than France did. There was one time
France had minimal time in the 22. Somebody had the stat for it yesterday, but the amount of time that they're actually in Ireland's 22 was so paltry on Saturday. It was to the point of almost unbelievability, but that's how good, I guess, Irish defence was.
Yeah, they were unlucky at times. I thought that McCluskey dropped a knee for the turnover. I don't think he should have been allowed to play the ball, and they got a penalty that time, and then there was another time where they lost the line out up there. There was a couple of times that I think we don't know what would have happened there, but in fairness, I thought that once there was any structure to the game, to your point, like the missed tackles, Ireland's defence just looked so solid and able for them,
Irish boxing is competing in a global sport. Rugby's 10 teams, and Wales is one of the superpowers.
I was about to argue that point, but what a brilliant kicker.
The Wales point cuts the legs from under us. Boxing's pretty concentrated, though, at amateur level, isn't it?
Yeah, it can be.
Yeah.
It's obviously got more widespread competitiveness than rugby, but I mean, you'd routinely see the medals table would be fairly dominated by the same handful.
Yeah, possibly.
But look,
a lot of the Eastern European teams that are like Eastern European countries that are the kind of like sub-Russian countries that we often might kind of blend into each other for us, our uneducated ways.
Wales, one of the superpowers.
That's a great kicker. I love it. Yeah.
Lads, Ireland crossed the French try line, ball in hand 8 or 9 times, says John in Limerick.
Can I ask about that? Do you think there's a new, I know we don't have time for this, but do you think there's a new tactic in defence of letting players over the line to hold them up, so because they get the drop out instead of the scrum? Because it's happening all the time at the moment, and Murray, I think, went over 3 times.
No, you're right. We don't have time for this.
Yes or no?
I don't know, actually. I don't know. I feel like there were always tries held up, no? Well, like, you've no option
like
sometimes.
4
just to
times in
but
this
like,
game.
What other option could you take except to hold it up?
No, stop them before. I don't know. Yeah. You don't want the 5
Well,
metre
ideally you would
scrum
stop
either,
them
you know?
before.
Yeah.
We should mention have I imagined this? Owen Morgan. Sorry. Yes, I haven't. Owen Morgan is retired.
Yeah, a 4-wicket defeat, for Ireland in the T20 Women's World Cup today to England. But as you mentioned there, Owen Morgan says he's cherished every moment of his cricketing career. The Dubliner confirming his retirement from all forms of the game. Morgan played international cricket for both Ireland and England, captaining his adopted home to World Cup glory in 2019.
An extraordinary career.
Unbelievable. It's something that I don't think he'll ever get a huge amount of credit for in this country. But it doesn't mean absolutely outstanding to probably be one of the best one-day cricket players of all time.
Yeah,
like realistically, you know, and a real longevity to his career as well.
I mean, what was it? We'll beg him for an interview and hopefully get him on the show in the next couple of weeks. It'll be lovely to chat to him about it all now that he's a bit more time in his hands. We are
come home.
Pretty much done. Michael, we'll chat to you later in the show. Richie and the audience at large, farewell.
Yeah, good luck off that cliff edge, lads.
Your chance to win big. News Talk's cash machine.
Now, the week started today with a missed call, so we have a rollover. If you've entered since 5 on Friday, you're still in the draw. The new number is €42,659 and 46